This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider. With a deadline of 4 a.m. on Saturday, an estimated 150,000 British holidaymakers in France are racing to get home before new quarantine restrictions descend. Roads towards the ferry port in Calais have reportedly been clogged with cars with British licence plates. Eurostar tickets sold out in the early hours. Late on Thursday night, the government said it was adding France to the quarantine list after a spike in coronavirus cases. Paris is threatening reciprocal measures. Well, among those dashing for the ferry is Abigail Thomas, who's in a car near Calais with two children aged 4 and 8. Her husband's driving. Abigail, thanks for speaking to us. Where are you at the moment?
We are currently in the car heading towards Calais. We were actually due to sail home on Sunday morning, so we're sort of 24 hours out really. We don't have a ferry booked because we can't change anything online, so we're just going to turn up and fingers crossed.
And already having had the holiday cut short, now in a car with mum and dad heading across France to catch a ferry. How are the children taking all this?
I don't think the little one understands because he's only 4 years old. I think Nina understands because she's 8, and I have explained to her what will happen if we can't get on the ferry in time.
And what will happen, Abigail?
If we can't get on a ferry to get back before the quarantine, then we're just going to see what the process is when we get to the UK border. With it being a ferry and not an airline, I'm not sure what the process will be, as I've only had information from other people that have been on aeroplanes. Obviously, if we have to quarantine and fill in the forms, then we'll have to abide by that.
How much would a 14-day quarantine affect, especially you actually, Abigail, because you work in a hair salon. You've only just recently reopened, and you were probably looking forward to the restrictions in that area being further eased tomorrow. That must be frustrating for you.
It's very frustrating because obviously we've missed out on a lot of work over the past 4 months and we're just getting back into it, but things are still not normal. We've had a very busy period followed by a very quiet period, and we're just going back into the busy period again, so we will miss out on that. So it will just push everything on another couple of weeks again. So having been quiet and obviously away for the past 2 weeks, it will mean that we'll go quite a long time without any income. But we're just really hoping that we can get home in time.
Thanks, Abigail. Now, the Evening Standard's Naomi Ackerman's been covering this story. Naomi, why has the government made this decision?
Well, it's not really that complicated, I guess. The decision has been taken because Boris Johnson has said that they're going to be completely stringent on not letting the virus back into the country through our airports, people coming in. Essentially, Department for Transport officials this morning said that data from France shows that over the past week, there's been a 66% increase in newly reported COVID-19 cases and a 52% increase in the weekly incidence rate per 100,000 of the population. So that indicates a sharp rise in infections in France, when they were saying that yesterday it came out that we're sort of maybe leveling off. It's not completely clear, but that was the idea. The Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said that the government decided to take a practical approach to new restrictions, and they just had to make a cut-off point at one point, and it happened to be tomorrow. The new quarantine conditions are also applying to travellers returning from the Netherlands, Monaco, Malta, Turks and Caicos and Aruba, because the Joint Biosecurity Centre and Public Health England have detected a significant change in the COVID-19 risk in all those destinations.
Now, the last time this happened, it was with Spain, and there was virtually no notice whatsoever. The quarantine restrictions just suddenly came down, and if you were there, then that was you. This time there's more than 24 hours notice, but it turns out people are still struggling, like Abigail, who we just heard from in the podcast, because it's not that easy to change your travel plans at short notice.
It's completely left as you've got to somehow make your own way back, and it's going to cost you however much it costs you. And yeah, I mean, some of the people we spoke to this morning were pointing out exactly that. They were saying, if the government's going to make these announcements, why are they not putting into place arrangements with travel companies to say that tomorrow when people have to get back, you're not going to hike prices? I mean, a one-way flight from Paris to London had reached £455 this morning, and the Eurostar's a £210 one-way ticket. I mean, if you don't have a huge amount of reserve cash in the bank, which at the moment people don't because they're terrified of losing their jobs, and that, you know, you've gone on holiday for a really nice break just to somewhere like France, which isn't exactly, you know, it's a very normal holiday destination. We're not talking about people flying to Turks and Caicos. They're being faced with huge price hikes, and, you know, people are questioning why the government hasn't done more to protect people.
And there's clearly a lot of uncertainty among potential holidaymakers, not ones going to places like France, but other destinations. They're wondering, should I still be going on my holiday? And where's that going to leave the travel industry?
Completely. So people are really cancelling plans. I mean, I personally have been affected by this, which I didn't put in our coverage, but I was meant to be going to Amsterdam next Friday just for 5 days for my friend's 30th birthday. And we have had to cancel that because my other friend that we're traveling with, his partner, she's a doctor, and NHS workers really can't just work from home for 2 weeks after they quarantine. So again, we're going to lose hundreds of pounds from an Airbnb deposit, and there's just nothing you can do because that's just what is happening because they take a service fee. And I think the travel industry, the latest ONS survey, which came out today as well, that was looking at the social impacts of the pandemic, has also shown that 1 in 5 people have already cancelled their plans based on the quarantine list, plans they'd already had about their holidays. So the impact on the travel industry is going to be huge, because if people are not going and spending their money in those tourist destinations, if people are then too scared to book a holiday going forward because they think, I'm going to lose out on hundreds of pounds, it could have a huge impact.
So what kind of advice is there for people who find themselves suddenly caught in a country that's now on the UK's quarantine list?
So the Foreign Office has said that it's not actually necessary to come home immediately if you're coming back from somewhere like France. They're saying that you just have to isolate when you get back. I mean, there's a lot on news websites. There's a lot on places like Money Saving Expert that will tell people how to help with travel insurance, because that's another thing that people are suddenly getting pulled. The Foreign Office isn't actually offering a huge amount of assistance. It's not like a repatriation flight situation. People can stay in France, they can come back here. It's just that when you come back, you have to then self-isolate for 14 days. So I think the government, it seems very much is seeing it as updating our advice based on the latest scientific information, and it's up to you to then make your own way home and decide as an individual whether or not you want to go on quarantine or just not go at all. And I think some people appreciate that, and I think others are probably thinking, I just want to know if I definitely can go on holiday or not. And I think it looks like the consumers are going to have to bear that risk, and the impact on the travel industry is yet to be seen.